Hi everyone. So, welcome to yet another episode of Unfiltered Immigration. And if you are new to this live stream or this channel, on this channel we talked about issues faced by high skill immigrants in the United States because of their immigration status. And today's episode is focused more on healthcare workers and issues faced by them, but not only issues faced by them, but because of the issues the United States faces to attract the best of the best healthcare workers and retain them. Because one thing I know is that all the jobs, I think that all the jobs are important and to make the world go around, right? But there are some jobs which are not just important, but they are like very hard jobs. And not only hard jobs, but it requires very specialized training because it's like very critical jobs. So it's not something which can do with 6 months training. So you have to go through intense and critical training, and then the job you have to do, it's very challenging. So because of that kind of difficulties, there are so less people who wants to do that, and people who are doing that, uh, some in the United States face a lot of challenges which can be resolved easily. Those challenges can be gone away if the intention is there. So we're gonna talk about that challenges. And if you know, I don't work in healthcare; I work in tech. But I have an amazing doctor, uh, Dr. Salil Kulkarni, who I have known because of his advocacy. So he's a doctor, he's ICU doctor. I am not gonna say a lot about what he does because I'm gonna butcher it because I don't know all the terminology. But one thing I know for sure is that his job, he's good at what he does, and he is an advocate. So I know him through the advocacy, and I'll let Dr. Salil Kulkarni tell a little bit about himself and what he does, and then we can talk about the things how his journey, but that's the journey which reflects the journey of a lot of the doctors or healthcare workers in the United States who it's the similar journey. So we're going to talk about the journey, the challenges, and what are the solutions which we can bring, which can help them. So welcome, doctor.
Thank you very much, Anuj. I'm Salil Kulkarni, and that was a very generous introduction. And I think you got most of the most of the points right. But yeah, I'm a physician in the United States, and like you said, I'm a lung specialist and an ICU doctor. I think in medical lingo, we are pulmonary and critical care medicine doctors. And I'm in technically speaking, I'm in training. I finished my pulmonary and critical care training this June in a couple of months, less than a couple of months actually. And then subsequently, I'm going to do some more advanced training. But like you said, I think for to keep it very simple, we deal with lung diseases, which are often of critical nature, and we also deal with patients who are among the sickest of the sick who require to be admitted to the ICU. And it's not just me. I mean, there are a lot of pulmonary and critical care doctors who are in a similar situation, as we all are. And like you very correctly said, I think it's not about a particular profession, or it's. I think we are all in this together. All occupations, have their own purpose. They have their own place, and they serve a certain critical purpose. But certainly, I do take pride in calling myself a physician who helps people stay alive when they really need to stay alive. But yeah, thank you for the opportunity to be here on this platform, and speaking to you. And I know we have been trying to collaborate for a bit at various times, but finally we are here.
Oh
So very happy to be
yeah.
here tonight.
No, happy. I know that one thing. I reached out to you first. That do you want to do this over the weekend? And I didn't realize that. Oh, you are even working on the weekends. So yeah, obviously that. A lot of the jobs we can do at our own schedule, but you some jobs like you have to be there when you are needed, and right, so
Right.
absolutely you
Yeah.
are like very busy, and thanks for taking the time to do this, to set the light on the issue faced by a lot of the people in this situation, right? So let's talk about how someone, this is about your journey, but let's say that someone who is in a foreign country, but if they want to become a physician in the United States, what are the process they have to go through, right?
Right, sure. I mean, it's most certainly a rigorous process. I think what we are all called are, international medical graduates or foreign medical graduates, and the process usually, we it what this term means is, people who have trained in medical schools outside of the United States, and it could be anywhere. It could be Canada. It could be Latin America, the Caribbean islands, India, South Asia, or anywhere else in the world. And I think the first part, of course, is certifying as you have trained outside of the country. The first part of the process is, of course, putting yourself parallel to a U.S. Medical school graduate. So oftentimes the first steps in this process are making sure that you have trained at a medical school that fits the bill. You've had legitimate medical training. And then the next step is, of course, something that every medical graduate that aims to eventually be a licensed physician in the United States has to go through, which would be, taking these rigorous set of examinations called the United States Medical Licensing Exam, or USMLE in short. There are about 3 exams. There used to be 4. They have eased them a little bit. A couple of them can be taken outside of the US at designated prometric centers. Prometric is the agency that administers these exams. And for the remainder, you have to be in the United States. But what these exams do, and these are pretty rigorous exams in that each of them, they are most of them are multiple choice, and
this exam are the same exam. Even the American doctors,
yes,
if they want to practice in
yes,
the United States, it's the same exam everyone has to
yes.
take.
Everyone takes the same exam, and it's common for everyone. It's administered almost daily across the world. What's special about these exams is they're, of course, besides being difficult, they have, I think, a very lengthy time frame. They are at least 8 to 9 hours long each.
Oh, wow.
And I think, I don't know if it's a trick, but if you have a passing score on any of these steps, you can't retake the exam for 7 years. So, as opposed to some other exams like, let's say, the TOEFL or GRE, which can be retaken or re-administered, these exams, after a passing score, cannot be retaken.
Wow.
And of course, you don't just need a passing score. Typically, if you're a foreign medical graduate, you're trying to prove yourself, prove your mettle, prove your equivalent in ways to those who have graduated from the U.S. medical system. You have to not just pass the exam, but you have to pass with flying colors.
Right.
So you either pass it. The other option is if you fail, you can retake the exam. But a failing grade on any of these exams is basically it shuts your doors for the most part to a U.S. Medical residency.
Okay, so if I understand it correctly, it's like if you fail, it's very challenging, but also like even if you get a low score, then you cannot take it again.
That's correct.
So
That's correct.
there is a saying which a lot of people go by. It's that fail faster, fail often, right? But it doesn't work in this situation. That
Absolutely.
you have to get it right at the first time. So you only get
Right.
it when you are like fully confident that you can get the best score
Right.
possible.
Right. And these are not all. As opposed to many other countries where medical education depends on a specific score. On an exam day. But these are just a part of your application. Besides that, I think things like your grades, your transcripts, your performance during your med school, or even prior to that. Any kind of experience that you've had, whether it's academic or para-academic, or you've done some social work, you've worked in some other way, for the benefit of humankind.
Right.
It all counts. And then, of course, if you've had any specific clinical experience, more so clinical experience that's acquired in the US, which means that you as a student came to the United States, rotated through a hospital. Worked, firsthand and kind of dealt with patients in the US and have some firsthand experience of the US medical system. That's usually coveted. That's often elusive, and that's usually valued significantly.
Okay.
Additionally, a lot of students go out of their way to try to publish research, have publications, because all of this is eventually going to count towards your application. Once you gather all of these things, you put it all together in the form of an application that is submitted centrally. There's a central system that you submit your application through to multiple programs that you're applying for. And then, as the programs receive your applications, they're going to review them, and based on their own filter criteria, some may filter you based on your scores, some may filter you based on pass or fail on any of the steps. A lot of them would do that, and some may filter you on where you're from, what kind of visa you need and stuff like that.
Right.
And ultimately, which is why the process is more difficult for foreign medical graduates. But ultimately, it all boils down to, if a program invites you for an interview and interviews you for a position that they may have. And, in most cases, the positions are limited, and a program is going to interview way more candidates than they have positions for.
So this program, you mean residencies, right?
Right.
The residency program, and this is the same system which American students, or regardless of they are foreign born or regardless, they go through the same system.
Yes. Yes. It's the same system for all, and then ultimately, it again goes through a centralized matching process, which takes into account your choices based on how many programs you may have interviewed at, and also takes into account individual program choices, based on who they have interviewed and what their preference order is, and it basically matches you into a residency position, which is in a way the end of the journey of a medical student who is pursuing a career in the United States, but also a sort of a beginning for a lot of medical graduates, and for a lot of foreign medical graduates, and I think even more so, as I have come to experience and realize, this is where things begin. You go through residency depending on what specialty you chose and what specialty you matched into.
So just to understand, like when you start this residency, when you are accepted, you are matched, you start this residency, what if you are foreign born, what visa category you start this residency on?
Right. I think historically, we had, as foreign medical graduates, we had more options. Of course, there was the H1B, because medical training in the United States or across the world, beyond medical school, residency training is almost a full-time job. On an average, medical residents work anywhere between 60 to 80 hours a week. And, it's very rigorous. It's a very steep learning curve. And because of it being work, it's not exactly a student visa that would suffice.
Right.
So traditionally, like I was saying, H1B, which is probably the most commonly used work visa in the US, it used to be, I think, more popular. But of course, as time has gone by, I think the J1 visa, which is the exchange visitor visa, that has kind of gained popularity. And I think at this point in time, most foreign medical graduates, who require visa
Okay.
sponsorship, they end up on a J1 visa.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Uh, so that's what I came here on. I matched into a internal medicine residency program in New York City. I came to the US in 2014 for my residency with my family, with my wife, and essentially I've been in the US since then. My residency lasted 3 years. I was on a J1 visa, and then beyond residency. Of course, that's where things get a little different for visa requiring candidates, who are looking for a job.
Right. So this residency is 3 years long.
Right.
It doesn't vary. Does it get like 4 year or 2 year? Huh.
It can be depending on the type of specialty you're in. So
Okay.
I think the least duration of residency would be 3 years. I think that would be the least number of years you will spend in residency. But certain specialties, I think more so the surgical specialties. For example, general surgery as a specialty, it's a 5-year training.
Okay.
There are some other specialties that are 4 years, while I think the rest of them are 3 years.
Okay. So once you finish the residency, then that is the next step, right?
Then the next step is, of course, you either find work. If you're done there, you either find work and you go work as a licensed physician, depending on where you would like to find your job at, or if you want to subspecialize, if you want to get into subspecialty training, you again go through a similar application process for what's called the fellowship match. And it's pretty much a similar application process. Of course, you don't have to take your USMLE exams again, but it's as challenging or more as is residency application. You pretty much have the same exact system, except that you're applying this time for a fellowship. And I think what you're going to be evaluated on is your performance, not only through your med school, but also through your residency.
Right.
And how well you did, and how well your peers and your supervisors talk about you.
So one thing interesting, as you mentioned, that the J1 visa is becoming common for the foreigners who are starting the residency in the United States. But as far as I know, J1 visa, it's I think that exchange visitor. What is it called?
It's called the exchange visitor visa. So the premise, and as the name implies, the premise is that you have a mandatory home residency requirement or a physical home residency rule after you're done with your training on J1 visa, which means that you are required to have mandatory physical presence of at least 2 years in your home country after you're done with training, before you can come to the United States and work on a work permit or on an H1B visa.
Right.
So that's a shortfall of this visa.
So if people who are not familiar think about that a doctor or a physician who went through so much training, right, that even to qualify for these exams, they had to become doctor first, and then they have to give these exams, and then they have to match it. So they cracked those exams and they went through this residency. But the best visa right now is asking them to go back to their country after doing all this, when there is already a healthcare shortage of these doctors, physicians, nurses, right? So this visa is asking them to go back to their country after finishing that. But I guess that now, because of this critical nature, I guess that there are some exceptions they have made. Uh, uh, what are those exceptions?
So yeah, the exceptions have been there, and I think for good reason. Uh, I think even the American medical system, relies heavily on foreign medical graduates. I think up to 25+% of the active physician workforce in the U.S. is, people who went to medical school outside of the U.S.
Okay,
And I think a
that's
vast majority of those, I think more than 20% of those are, people who went to Indian medical schools or
oh
medical
wow,
schools in India.
yeah, uh-huh.
So I think people born in India or medical graduates from India, make up a big chunk of this. And there is a good reason, as I was saying, to waive for the U.S. administration and for the U.S. medical system to want to waive this home residency requirement because a lot of foreign medical graduates, just from how challenging it is to enter the U.S. as a working physician, or to come here for residency. I think what we choose are some of the specialties that have traditionally been ignored, or not ignored, but traditionally have not been the preferred specialties for American graduates. And there are a lot of reasons for these because American graduates often tend to have student loans, for example,
Right.
and which can be heavy. Medical school is expensive in the U.S.
Oh yeah.
And as is in many other countries in the world. But they want to be in specialties that will be high paying at the outset, so that they can get rid of their loans. So they often go for the higher paying surgical specialties, like orthopedics, for example, or
Okay.
radiology, dermatology, neurosurgery, which pay you much more even at the outset. And as a result, some of the other more what are called primary care specialties, like when you want to go to a physician, when you want to go for your annual health inspection, you go to a primary care physician. If you're an adult, you go to a medicine doctor, or if you're a kid, you go to a pediatrician. So these are called primary care specialties because they deal with the basic medical care of the population. So these tend to be somewhat lower earning, and oftentimes I think internal medicine, which is the specialty I trained in, I think has the most number of foreign medical graduates. I think more than 40,000, or more than, I think I would say probably 50,000 of all of the foreign medical workforce is probably in internal medicine and its subspecialties.
Right.
And of course, a part of this, and I think this is important that I highlight it now, is geriatric medicine, which, I think despite it being a low-paying specialty, geriatric medicine stands for the medicine that deals with elderly adults. So people who are older, and as you probably know, America is an aging country. It's a receding population. The population is on the decline, and soon there are going to be more elderly people than younger. So these are a unique group of people who have specific healthcare needs. These are people who are often going to have a lot of chronic medical problems. They are also more than likely going to not be the earning population. So, they are also often not on active employer insurance.
Right.
And, these people have their own specific care needs. And geriatric medicine is a subset of internal medicine, which probably has more than half of the active physician workforce in geriatric medicine is foreign medical graduates. So, it's, I think it would be fair to say that foreign medical graduates, take care of more than half
Wow.
of, the needs, the geriatric needs of the American population. Coming back to the point, like I was saying, a vast majority of foreign medical graduates end up in primary care specialties. And we are happy to work in these specialties. And oftentimes, the most healthcare needs are not in big cities because, you end up having a lot of doctors in big cities. But, these tend to be in the periphery. So this has been recognized by the U.S. healthcare system that American graduates number one, they tend to go for higher paying specialties, and number two, they, for various reasons, they tend to prefer not to work in rural workplaces, or
Right.
areas that are called physician shortage areas, or rural areas. So what a solution that has been developed and over the years is that they have various programs. I think the most popular being it's known as the Conrad 30 program, where every state has allocated positions, 30 specifically in each state, which are called J1 waiver eligible positions.
Okay.
So if you are on a J1 visa, and if you wish to stay back in the United States and want to waive the the mandatory physical home residency requirement that this visa comes with, what you can commit to do is commit to work in a physician shortage area for a period of at least 3 years. You will be granted, once that is approved, once your waiver application is approved, which is a process in itself, you will be granted a conditional work permit, which is an H1B visa that ties you to that particular job for a period of 3 years. Beyond which, of course, once you have met the requirement, you are free to go beyond that area, or go beyond a physician shortage area, and practice at your will at wherever you want. But this is typically how you get what's called a J1 waiver. There are some other waiver, possibilities. There are some other ways of getting a waiver, but I think this is probably the most common one that's used by foreign medical graduates.
Okay, so to understand, so first that they have to pass this challenging exam, they have to finish the residency, intensive residency, then they are on the J1 visa. So if they want to continue serving, there is already shortage in the United States, but then if they want to continue stay in the United States and serve, they have to go and work in the areas which are not highly attractive for the American graduated physicians, right? That local,
Right.
It's not their first choice, so they go and serve in these areas which are in a huge demand of the doctors or the care they need. So they have to go and serve in those areas to get that waiver, and that's like required to serve in that area for 3 years.
Yes.
And once you serve in that 3 areas, I hope the challenges ends there, right? So what's after that? You got that waiver, you served in that area for 3 years. After that, you become permanent resident, right?
Yes and no. You become a permanent resident if you're born in the right part of the world.
Okay.
If I may put that way, put it that way. Certainly, it's you can apply even during your waiver once you are afforded.
First, from J1 you got the waiver, and then you are like on different visa, right?
Right. I'm on an H1B, but it's like I said, it's a conditional H1B. It's an H1B that ties you to your job,
right?
And it ties you to the shortage area that you're in. Under very extraordinary circumstances, you may request a change of jobs. But of course, that requires that you prove such extraordinary circumstances. And you can change your job, but you still have to work in a shortage area for a period of 3 years.
Even on the H1B visa.
Even on the H1B. Now, once that is done, then you are, I think, open to practice elsewhere. Now, what that means for people from international medical graduates in general is, of course, I think once they got on an H1B, I think they were able to apply for a U.S. permanent residency if they decide to, like most people do.
Right.
And I think, as is the norm, I think even for healthcare, I think the EB2 category tends to be the most common category. And once, of course, you are through with your waiver, depending on whether your priority date, which is the date on which your petition was applied and approved. If as long as that's active and as long as you have a visa, an immigrant visa that can be issued for you, you can apply for a green card, which goes well for a majority of.
So let me ask you this. So you have already applied for this, you have filed your immigration petition, right?
Long time ago, yes. Yeah, I have filed for and I'm approved for it long time ago.
Which is, I guess, EB2 NIW, if I remember correctly.
EB2 NIW,
Yeah,
which is national interest waiver.
Mm-hmm. So you filed for that and you approved for that. And if someone who doesn't know that EB2 NIW category is national interest waiver, what it means that person who qualified for that, and if they lives in the United States, it's good for the United States. It's in the benefit of that. So
it's in the national interest of the United States.
Yeah, it's in the national interest. So you got approved for that.
Yes.
But you don't have your permanent residency. When did you got approved for this?
Early 2018.
So, okay, so early 2018. We are in 2024. But as far as I know, you are still on H1B, right?
That's correct. And I think what's been different in my case is I did my J1 waiver job for 3 years. In my 4th year working as a physician, which was, of course, in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, I applied for a fellowship, which is subspecialty training in lung diseases and ICU medicine, pulmonary and critical care, and which is when I matched into this fellowship, where I'm currently at. And of course, because like I was saying, J1 visa has kind of become the more popular and the more common visa that most training programs would go for, just because of the ease of it, and the perceived problems that may come with an H1B application. Of course, I think the biggest one being the fees, the filing fees, the infamy, the unpopularity that this visa has garnered over the years, with so much voice, so much, politically speaking, so much that has gone behind it and around it. I think a lot of programs shy away from, applying for this. And I'm thankful that, of course, after I, talked about this with my program, they were very gracious and grateful. And I'm grateful that, they agreed to sponsor this. But a lot of people who basically are on H1B and desire to train and are very deserving to train further, after they end up on H1B, are often unable to do so. And I know many of these people personally who have had extreme difficulties in finding training positions just because they don't have the right visa. Right. Just because there's an inertia for programs to not opt for
right,
the H1B.
Yeah. So like as in like many profession, but so you got approved for a permanent residency in 2018. So at least been 6 years you have been approved for, but you are not permanent resident even though you are approved. Is this common or?
It's very common. I mean, I think I get this question a lot from people who are not in healthcare, that it is, people often express surprise, people who are, even people who are not initiated, people who do not have an idea of, the employment-based green card backlog. A lot of times I get this question, oh, you are a healthcare worker, you're a physician, you have worked in the worst times in recent history as far as healthcare is concerned. You have risked your lives on the front lines, taking care of the sickest of patients who had COVID, and you managed to survive it. But how come you do not have a priority in this? It's impossible. You should have a position way ahead of the others. But I have to tell them that no, I still do not. I still am not privileged enough for that.
So, as far as I understand, for my right, that the category you have been approved for, EB2, that's like, if some people don't know that in the United States, even high skill immigration, that's not purely based on merit, they prioritize based on the country of birth. And all the countries doesn't produce the skills which United States has shortage of equally, but the gap it's equally there. So what it means that, like, let's say that United States has a shortage of healthcare workers, physicians. They get it from outside of the United States. If, like, let's say a country, not to name any country, but let's say that they are not sending any doctors, but there is another country which Dr. Kulkarni also already mentioned, right, that there were like 50% of the people serving in the geriatric cares are international doctors, but in that, even that, like 25% are Indian, right? So even though the doctors which United States has shortage of, it's like India is providing those doctors, but the cap is same. So, like, let's say that if Dr. Kulkarni was born in any other country, he would be permanent resident by now, because for the most of the countries, the backlog in EB2, it's very less. It takes like a year for you to get it after approved. But now, because he is born in India, his wait, as far as I know right now, it's calculated more than 50 years according to the priority date. If someone gets approved, like if a doctor gets approved in this category in 2024, their wait would be more than 100 years. So that's the situation we are in right now, because now, even though he's approved for this permanent residency, he has to stay on the H1B visa, which is very limited. It's very restrictive, right? So he can only work for the employer who sponsored that H1B. He cannot work for any other employer, but it needs to be renewed every 3 years, right? Correct? It's in the same in the medical field as well, that you have to keep renewing this every 3
Yes.
years.
Every 3 years, that's correct.
Right.
And of course, every time you change your job.
Right.
Yeah.
So they cannot change the job easily, because if they want to change the job easily, they need to find an employer who is willing to sponsor the H1B first. And whenever they travel in and out of the country, they need to have the valid visa, and that needs to be renewed every 3 years as well. So what are some of the challenges because of this kind of restriction you have come across, that you have personally faced, or like some of the colleagues who are in the similar situation, they have faced this kind of challenges because of this kind of restrictions?
I mean, it's endless. Of course, I think what's common across professions, and what's common across occupations. I think I recently applied for an advanced fellowship in pulmonology, specifically interventional pulmonology, and I matched into it, thankfully. But while I was in the process, while I was going through the application process, after my applications were done, and after we started receiving invitations for fellowship interviews from programs, after they reviewed the application, I would hear from a lot of program directors, who extended an invitation to me for an interview. But of course, the question that would follow from their end would be, are you a person who would require visa sponsorship? And if you do, what kind of visa you would need? and or it would be a lot of times it would be me asking this question of them. Thanks for extending an interview to me, but do you sponsor an H1B visa?
Right.
And the conversation would often end there because, of course, I think a majority of programs in this particular training area, they do not offer H1B sponsorship. Again, thankfully, I was able to find some programs that did, and thankfully, I was able to get into one such program. I think I'm of all the applicants this year, I think only 14 of these were international medical graduates, and I'm lucky enough to be one of them. But as you can probably make out, it's visa being perpetually on a visa it kills opportunities for a lot of international medical graduates. Of course, like other issues, you are restricted to a certain employer because changing a job would mean, going through the tedious process of applying for visas. You're restricted in terms of traveling. And I think this was most felt, I think, during the COVID pandemic, where I have, personal experiences. I have friends who are physicians who could not travel to India.
That's good. Like travel, before we go to the travel, let's just talk about this thing which I observed when you were explaining that when you applied for this, I think you said you applied for 8 different fellowship, but out of that 8, 6 were not able to hire you because of your visa status, right?
Right. So, I mean, I applied for multiple programs, out of which I think about close to 15 extended an interview. I think 15 is a good number, but I think about 6 of those I had to say no to, or they had to say no to me because they wouldn't sponsor a visa. So the conversation ended there, them asking me if I would need a visa sponsorship and me telling them that no. Yes.
Here, like few things, right? That these are like, if you think about this, when United States like prioritize based on the country of birth. So if you are like, if doctor was born in any other country, he would be permanent resident by now, and he wouldn't have to face these challenges right now. So these are kind of like opportunities people are missing out just based on their country of birth because of their visa restriction. So it's like opportunity people who are qualified who are missing out. But at the same time, let's say that any hospital, if they want to recruit, they have a shortage of doctors. They want to recruit some doctors, some healthcare workers, and then they invite applications. There are some applicants who they find that these are the best qualified people. If they want to recruit them, but because of their institution doesn't allow that visa category, even though they are like some applicants are more qualified, they have to go and hire these people. Sometimes they are less qualified, sometimes they are not, but that's not always the case, right? So like they are forced to make the decision based on their visa category, right? That if they have green card, if they are citizen, that makes them easier, right? So it's like employers are forced to make this decision based on their visa status, even when they are like better qualified doctors available. I am not saying that all the people who are on the visa, they are better qualified, but if it's that restriction is not there, then the employers, in this case, healthcare provider institute, right? It could be hospital. They should be able to hire the people based on the merit, which means that the people who come to this institution to get the healthcare, they should be able to get the healthcare, the best healthcare they deserve, right? So there are like both the people are hurting and the people, healthcare providers are hurting as well, right? So, okay, now I guess that you are talking about travel, like.
Right. I think the way you put it, I think, institutional preferences, I think they do definitely, guide, the opportunities that are being missed out by foreign medical graduates.
Mm-hmm.
As far as travel, like I was saying, I have known physicians who could not attend the last rites of their dying parents
Mm-hmm.
back in India uh, because we were in the middle of a pandemic, and travel was not easy. Of course, uh, if some of the listeners are not aware, what it means to travel when you're on a visa is if the visa stamp in your passport, which has an expiry date, if it's expired, you may still be in a valid visa status while you're in the US, but the moment you leave the US, before you come back in, you need to visit a US embassy or a US consulate abroad to renew your visa stamp. Uh, so, with the US consulates, embassies being closed because of COVID restrictions pretty much across the world,
Mm-hmm.
traveling for even family emergencies was deemed to be a difficult decision to make because on one hand, you had a dying parent or a dying family member, and on the other, you had your own family, your future, your job, your patients,
Mm-hmm.
at stake. And for some people, this was a very difficult decision to make because I know people who serve rural communities where they may be the only kidney doctor who can do
Wow, yeah.
dialysis
Uh-huh.
for the entire town, or
Mm-hmm.
entire that all the people who need dialysis in a town or even in a district. Uh, and leaving or even going on a vacation for a period of time may mean that they may either have to sacrifice their patients care, or they may have to find a replacement for the time being.
Mm-hmm.
And these decisions were very difficult to make, even with a parent or a close loved one,
Mm-hmm.
a dying loved one being at the other end of it. So I've personally known people who could not make that decision easily, at least.
Yeah, and as you say that it's a tough choice, right? And most doctors wouldn't make that choice, right? Because it's like if they're sure that they're gonna attend the family event and come back right away, they might. But like this is, they don't know when they're gonna come back, right? Because the consulates are closed, so already it's not like we have. This is like very specialized jobs and they are like already serving in the underserved areas where it's like hard to find replacement, right? But then we are making it harder for them uh, to travel, right? That they cannot easily go in and out, and if they get stuck, then they are like missing out on the healthcare, and it can cost lives here, right? So we have put them in like very tough position to make this decision. And as far as I know, most doctors wouldn't make that. They would prefer not to travel because they care about their patient. And especially if you are in India, we take this oath, right? And I guess we call it Dharma. Your Dharma comes before your family, right? So it's like your job, which you care so much about, right? And it's doing at your best, but even like then you have this added, I guess, mental burden that you are not prioritizing your family, right? So it's like a lot of these things I think that easily can be avoided, but because this issue it's not getting the attention, a lot of the people, like we are not having this conversation frequently, that a lot of the doctors who are treating you, you might not know that because they do that job. When they come to do that job, they give their 100%, and you might know that, but they could be going through this all these things because that lot of the workforce, especially in the healthcare, is foreign born, and many times they are on the visa and they might be going through these challenges in the day-to-day life, which is like added burden on top of their very demanding jobs, right? Which can be easily ignored. So I think that there should be something which makes their life easier, and this travel restriction, it's like one of the top thing, right? That I know that another advocate, Dr. Raj Karnadak, he's very active. I have met him personally, and that's one of his top requests, that okay, I don't want a lot of things, but if I have this travel freedom to travel in and out of the country easily, right? So then, whenever they need to go in and out, they have this peace of mind. But also, United States has benefit that they are sure that this doctor, physician, healthcare workers who are like highly trained, they are back to provide the care which a lot of American patients needs, right? So that's why it's important to bring this solution, right?
Right. No, I completely agree. I think, like you pointed out, the concept of dharma, where you do, what you're meant to do. Uh, and, you do what you think is your responsibility in society. And, I think all of us, who come here for our own personal aspirations, I think find commune, find family, find society in the communities we, come to live in. I can, of course, say this about countless physicians that are in the same situation as I am, where we, often came to a particular small community, and we came here because, of course, because of certain visa restrictions, because of some mandates that come as a part of the immigration process for physicians. But once we came here, I think we all tend to fall in love with our communities. We spend so much time with our people, our patients. We develop not just a professional relationship with them, but often, a personal bond with them. And eventually we call this our home. Like the community I am in, I came to where I am just because, this is where I got a job, which was a J1 waiver eligible position. And after coming here, I really loved this place, and this is where I've been. This is a place that has given me so much, so much love and so much respect. And this is where I would like to continue to live in. But, I think, and I was living my own life, I was living my life, raising my family until COVID came along. And I think, that changed a lot for a lot of healthcare workers. And I don't just only speak for physicians or doctors, I also speak for other healthcare workers. I think most notably nurses, who have also, equally, if not more, bore the brunt of, what the last few years have been like for healthcare workers in general. And when COVID came along, I think it was a wake-up call for a lot of us, where we started questioning, the system, the whole process that has kind of restricted us in these, very unfair backlogs. At one point, you start to feel very helpless. You start to feel like you're very small, like nothing. But and that's the other aspect of it. I think to highlight a big example, all physicians who worked during COVID, and like COVID came to the bigger cities first. Of course, cities like New York and states like California, the coasts, the big cities, they were affected first, and they were affected the worst. I think New York in particular, and then the East Coast in general, I think was very severely affected early on. And because I trained in New York, I did my residency there. I used to hear from a lot of my friends who were medicine physicians or critical care physicians, manning the ICUs, figuring out how to use 6, 7, 8 ventilators one ventilator for 6, 7, 8 patients at the same time. Because they were resource strapped, because they did not have the equipment. They did not have even adequate, personal protective equipment for themselves. And, they were just coming up with, all sorts of renovations and things, being innovative in as many ways as they could. And, a lot of these are younger people. A lot of these are, they have, they're confident that they'll not fall sick, and they were finding, their karma in their work. I think a lot of these physicians who were busy and who were very resource strapped in these big cities, they were needing help. Versus there were smaller communities all across the country where COVID did not hit initially. It came very late, or it never came to as much extent as it did in some of the big hospitals. And critical care physicians, I think more so the green card backlog community, physicians and critical care doctors and nurses, they were very much wanting to go and help out in some of these big cities and hospitals that were, struggling. We would get messages from recruiters, who offered urgent jobs because, there were hospitals and there were employers who were in a dire need for nurses and physicians. And there were friends who would reach out, asking if we could come help. But of course, what we had to tell them is, no, we can't. And not because, we were afraid of our lives, or not because we were struggling in our own hospitals, or not because, we were afraid for our family, but because we were tied because of our immigration status. We were tied to our employer. And, going to work somewhere else without the right visa would mean that our immigration status in the country would be nullified. It would be voided, and we'll have to pack our bags and leave. And despite wanting to do this, despite wanting to help our co-healthcare workers across the country, who were in some cases even dying because they were having to deal with so much COVID, we could not do that. And those were I think some of the worst moments for a lot of physicians, a lot of healthcare workers, a lot of nurses in this country, who were international medical graduates, and I think more particularly who were visa dependent because of being in a green card backlog, where despite wanting to put in their best foot forward, just could not do it because of being restricted in this way.
So yeah, it's like because you are restricted with the visa, because your visa is tied to your particular employer, even if they need, this was like a real scenario where they needed you, or like they needed doctors in New York, in big cities, but because you are tied, you cannot go and do that. Even though you are qualified, they want you, but you can't. You are restricted by your visa status.
Yes, and I would like to add that at this point in time, a lot of these big cities and healthcare systems in these big cities were, they were employing residents from non-ICU specialties or non-medical specialties, or even medical students were being asked to help. Doctors take care of extremely sick patients in the ICUs, but there were ICU trained physicians in some other parts of the country who were wanting to go and wanting to help, but could not because of a restrictionist policy like this.
Right. So yeah, this is a real life example of what happened because of the visa restriction. You were not able to serve, even though you were qualified. They needed you. And I hope that this is the last time something like this happens, but we never know, and that can happen in the future where for some different reason, not for the COVID, and let's say that something happened in Connecticut, for that they are in immediate need of more doctors for like some specialty, they need them there. But because like if those people are on the visa, they are qualified, they are already in the United States. If they are outside of the United States, forget about it. But even if they are in the United States, let's say they are in California, they are in Kansas, you cannot bring those doctors and have them serve here without going through this like lengthy visa process. Even though their immigration petition is approved in the national interest waiver, still they have to go through all this, right? So one thing is that their heart is breaking, that they are not able, they are trained but they are not able to provide what they are trained for. But then on the other hand, like the healthcare industry is hurting because of this kind of visa restriction, right? So there are like always two parts to this equation, which is sad, that why these things are the way this is, and why policymakers are not making this priorities to solve this issue. Uh, 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 so I guess let's talk about or like let's summarize some of the things that the kind of challenges they faced already is that they are limited from like changing the jobs. They are missing out on the opportunities, but also like the employers or these hospitals are not able to hire the doctors based on the merit. They also have to look their status. They are like when sometimes they are needed to provide the care in this kind of scenario like the COVID we talked about. They are, even though they are trained, they are capable, they cannot provide that care because of their visa restriction. They are missing out on important family events, right? Sometimes good, sometimes, but all times important, that because of this uncertainty which comes with their visa, uncertainty about their travel, they are missing out on this important family events. And sometimes if they travel, if they get stuck for whatever reason, then they like, it's Americans who are hurting because they are like missing out on the care they need, right? So there are like these are some of the just like points we were able to touch on today. There might be like many more challenges if we talk about, but because of the time limitation, let's talk about some of the solution. What are the some of the solution which we can bring? And before we get that, I was like for this episode I was like looking up some things, right? So there are like two things I found just to share. One is this from AAMC, and one of the things they highlighted is that according to projections, the United States will face a physician shortage of up to 86,000 physicians by 2036, right? And it might seem like far, but it's like, as we talked about the training it required to become doctor, it's already 10 years, right? And then another thing I came across, right, that the healthcare workforce shortage is worldwide problem. It's not just the United States, and this is I guess National Institute of Health. So this is the U.S. government is saying that the healthcare worker shortage around the world, right? So it's not like only United States has a shortage of this doctors, healthcare workers. So then it's possible that other countries might start recruiting this because they are needed around the world, right?
No,
So
and I think other countries are already. I mean, I think there is a misconception that United States is the only country, or it's the one country that heavily, or most heavily relies on foreign trained doctors. But that's not the truth. I think there is enough data. Based on an OECD, I think it's Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development report. I think more than 50% of physicians practicing in Israel, for example, are international medical graduates, or about 40% of those in New Zealand, are international graduates. And like I said, US is not the only country. I think a lot of countries across the world have a physician workforce that's made out of international graduates. UK, Germany, Australia, I think, France, Canada. So a lot of these countries do rely and for good reason. I mean, besides bringing in vitality and diversity and a wealth of knowledge, I think foreign medical graduates have enriched. They have added a competitive edge to the U.S. medical system. Like I was saying, we make up a lot of the primary care specialties and subspecialties of some of these. A lot of these doctors, besides being at the forefront of taking care of Americans' health, they're also responsible for training American budding physicians. I think all said and done, I think based on a 2017 report, I think out of about the 80,000 odd academic physicians in the country, about 20% of these are all international medical graduates. About 15% of full professors in medical schools in the US, 15% of these professors were trained outside of the US. So I think this speaks a lot. International graduates, including us, who are in the backlog, I think contribute not only to the health of Americans, but we are also helping, develop and build the American medical workforce. So I think we have called the US our home.
Right.
We have put a step forward. We have put a foot forward to assimilate in our communities, call them our home. Take care of the health of our people. Which are the American people now. But somehow, I think administration after administration, has. Like you said, despite there being predicted shortages, and even currently there being shortages among healthcare workers in the U.S., I think this is an aspect that has been ignored or that has been on the sidelines. There have been some efforts. I wouldn't say that there were zero efforts. I think there were a couple of bills, I think, that were proposed. One of them being the Healthcare Workforce Resilience Act, and I think physicians in this position or nurses in this position will maybe well aware of this. These bills are still active, but they have not necessarily gained the traction they deserve, and they have not really come to the light of day. The other bill being what's called the Conrad 30 Physician Reauthorization Act. The Healthcare Workforce Resilience Act, I think it basically wanted to give unused green cards from the past years, green cards that have gone unused, about a total of 40,000 to physicians and nurses, to help them navigate through the COVID pandemic, and also be able to easily work across state borders and go to different hospitals and provide for the healthcare needs of Americans.
So just to understand, 40,000 according to based on the priority, or they were based on the country cap applies to that, or no?
Based on no, the country cap would not have applied.
Okay, that's good.
Right.
That bill's good. Then it provides relief to all these healthcare workers who are in line and waiting for so long, right? So those bills are active in this Congress, or they were in the past Congress?
They were, I think, more active in the past Congress. I think they were introduced again in this Congress. But like I said, we don't see them generating enough traction. I don't think the administration has taken enough, or not only the administration, but the U.S. Congress has taken enough interest in the needs of the healthcare workers in these situations. The other one being the Conrad 30 Reauthorization Act, which basically solidifies the Conrad 30 J1 waiver program, which we talked about earlier. It solidifies it into a law. It also increases the number of positions from 30 to 35 per state in the Conrad 30 program. And it affords some other...
be there. Like, why they changing 30 to 35 and they're like they already predicting that there is a huge shortage, right? And then like why we want, let's say that instead of 30 we have 50, why we want that 20 to go back to their country.
I mean, I'm. That's a good question. That's a great question. But I think the jump from 30 to 35
It's
uh,
good.
is in itself.
Would
It's
be huge. Yeah.
it's turning out to be a mountain to climb. So
Oh wow. Okay. I
so
thought that that should be like no brainer, and that would be like, oh, 30 to 35. Why not? Because we already have, this is like U.S. government. So one way you see that United States is saying that, I guess the number was 88,000 physician we will have shortage by 2030, 2036. And another thing we saw, that there is a shortage of healthcare workers around the world, right? So the issue I see is that, let's say that the doctors who are already trained here, they might not move out to other countries because it's very challenging and they are attached to the community they build here as well. But the issue I see that, because the shortage is around the world, it would be like, if this kind of challenges healthcare worker face in the United States, it's going to be very challenging for the US to attract new doctors, because they're going to compete with all these other countries, and sometimes very developed countries, who wants this healthcare worker, right? So they are going to make it very easy. And once that mindset changes, that, let's say that if you are a doctor, your primary or like first choice becomes Canada, then that becomes a trend and it's very hard to reverse. So I think that there are a lot of the things which can Congress make it better, and the administration make it better as well, right? That a lot of the reliefs, it's not only dependent on Congress. So I think that one thing they can at least do, right, that all the healthcare workers, which is like already they are trained, they are licensed, and United States, like they have already put this in the Schedule A category, right? What that means that this is there is no doubt that there is a shortage in this field. So they fall in this field, and their immigration petition is already approved. I would suggest that one thing they can do is that immediately give them EAD and AP. What that means is that they are not tied to their employer, and they have the freedom to travel in and out of the country without like worrying about they are able to get back in time or not, right? So that's like, that doesn't require any bill. These are called interim benefits, which are provided to many different other immigrants, sometimes even people who just came to the country by crossing the border and seeking asylum. Even to them they are provided, while we are like not providing this kind of reliefs to the healthcare workers, which we already have shortage of. And this is like, I'm not speaking in just in terms of like because it's the right thing to do, but because it's like selfish thing as well as a general public, right? That I don't want to miss out on this healthcare when I need, at some point in my life, I will need this healthcare. And I don't want to like be without that. Oh, we don't have this doctor. You have this issue, and for this issue, if you need the healthcare, you need to travel abroad or something. So we don't want to be in that kind of situation. And this is something very easy government can implement right now, that they are already weighted, they are US trained, they are providing healthcare in the underserved community, and their immigration petition is approved. It's like no brainer to issue them EAD AP, so at least they are not tied to their employer, they can travel easily. And sometimes like COVID kind of situation, if they want to go and serve in this kind of areas where they are needed, they can do it easily, right? So that's one solution. It's out there, which is easy to implement. Anything to add
absolutely.
to that?
No, I think like you said, some of these are easy to implement. I think legislation, but also some benefits which would not require a legislative effort, some of these could be implemented in an easier manner and in a more expedited manner as well. Especially, when you're dealing with when you've recently dealt with a world-spanning pandemic
Right.
that saw
Yeah.
millions of American lives lost, and not just Americans, but lots of millions, tens of millions of lives lost the world over. Uh, and I'm not even talking about the morbidity of this disease. We have seen, and I see it even today on a first-hand basis, how still many people have who survived this illness. They're still living with the consequences of it. And COVID is one example. Uh, there is no doubt in my mind that the next pandemic is only in the making, and sooner or later it will hit us.
Yeah.
And that's the nature of infections. That's the nature of some of these diseases, that they will every few years, every few decades, they'll come back, or some variant of them will come back. And there is no doubt in my mind then that we may be in a similar situation again, or like you said, with the shortage only expanding, the situation may be actually worse next time around. So yeah, some of these are no-brainers.
Right.
Either legislative action or not, some of these things can be implemented. Some of these should have bipartisan support. And I think some of these should be expedited. Some of these solutions should be expedited, not only for the sake of the individuals who are bearing the brunt of it, but even more so for U.S. healthcare, for American lives, for American physicians in making, all of these,
Right.
because all of these things are going to suffer in the event that the trend reverses. The solutions, of course, there are myriad, and I think at this point in time, the way I look at it, like I said, there was a time when I didn't really think too much about it. I was living my life, but then I think at some point, you do realize that I think the way about this is, talking about this, voicing yourself, bringing your opinion to voice and reaching as many people. And I'm still surprised myself how many people are not aware of this problem.
Yeah.
A lot of my patients, a lot of my physician coworkers, or nurse colleagues, they do not know of this problem, and they are often sympathetic, and they all often are surprised knowing what the situation is for a lot of us.
Yeah.
So I think speaking out
Yeah.
about this, reaching as many people, I think is also something I see to try to generate curiosity, generate knowledge, and attempt to magnify this problem of ours, magnify this issue of ours.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, that's the one thing that a lot of the healthcare workers are in this kind of situation. But a lot of the people, they don't want to bring their personal issues to their job, right? And that's why they are doing their job with a smile on their faces, right? And that's why, even though you see them, but you don't know that the struggles they have been going through. So like anytime, maybe like if you are like watching, and if you are like going to a doctors, maybe ask them where they are from, and then like if you are there from maybe like grow up in the foreign country, probably they might have been going through the same issues. So feel free to initiate that conversation. Maybe I'm not sure like the healthcare workers can start talking about their visa issues, but like let's say not all of the doctors can do, but maybe like let's say like if you are physiotherapist, right, then that kind of then you have like different kind of bond with your patients, right, and that's not very intense care kind of situation where you can have like a normal conversation, so Yeah, I think that we need to have this kind of conversation more so people become aware, because the policymakers are not prioritizing, because not many Americans know about these issues, right? That even the people who are providing the care they need, they are going through this issue. So if we have like more conversation, then I think that there will be like more motivation for policymaker to provide this relief they need, right? Uh,
Yes.
yeah.
I think, like you pointed out, and, I think this stands true. I may not have, I'm glad you mentioned, some of the other healthcare worker occupations, physical therapists, occupational therapists, and a lot of these are, graduates of, international schools. Uh, Certainly all of these, have had a very similar role to play throughout, some of the toughest times we have seen. Uh, all physicians, including, dental graduates, dentists, and any and every healthcare worker, I think, has been a part of this hand in hand. And it's, they are often in a very similar situation, when it comes to being stuck in the green card backlog. Uh, so I think even if it's not a part of your patient-physician relationship, but outside of that, I think certainly more than anything, American patients and American people should know that the smiling face that their physician or their nurse or their healthcare worker puts up. It may have a lot of these kind of issues that they are having to deal with behind it, and there's a lot that goes into being a physician in the U.S. for a foreign medical graduate, and there's a lot that they bring to the table. There's a lot that we offer. And I'm sure that if given the opportunity, they will only help, improve American healthcare, take better care of American lives, and I think, be more proactive in, dealing with healthcare issues that bother America right now.
Well said. So, one of the other solution I was thinking about, that how we can solve these issues, right? And like one of the thing recently I came across is that in the United States, the state doesn't have a say in immigration, even though the healthcare workers, even if like let's say a state like maybe North Dakota, if they are having a issue attracting the best of the best, not the best, like even like the healthcare workers essentially they are having hard time motivating or like getting that healthcare workers, but state doesn't have say in that, in the immigration, which is like in some other countries like Canada, Providence has say that these are the workers we need, and if they sponsor the Providence sponsor them, then it's very easy for them to get the immigration status, right? So something like that, if it is in the United States, that let's say that some state, just giving North Dakota for an example, that if they say that okay, like we don't need to give EADAP to the entire all the doctors, right? But if someone wants to come and serve in North Dakota, then give them EAD-AP, and that EAD is specifically only valid in North Dakota, right? And then if it is like given to that, someone comes and serves in this state for 3 years, then they immediately get the permanent residency, right? So something like that is implemented, then the states which really has a shortage, they can opt in for this. So it's like the state is getting the benefit, the healthcare worker, but then all this like doctors who want to go and serve in those areas, they would get that benefit, right? And if like certain states start implementing like this, I guess that all the states wants to implement, right? Because who wants to lose out on this healthcare workers? So I think that that's something which is like not looked into much, but I think that the state can start pushing for this as well if you have like the shortage in your state.
No, I think that's a good point. As a matter of fact, I think a couple of states in the U.S., and this is a very recent development, with the physician shortage being as dire as it is, and with the predicted shortage being even worse, I think some states, I think mainly three states, and these are still kind of developing things in some of these states, but some of these states are actually opening up access for foreign trained physicians in a way that namely Illinois and Florida, I think they are implementing laws, or some of these have already passed laws where foreign trained physicians may be licensed, at least in a limited sense, to work as physicians in the United States, even without having formal residency training in the United States, as long as they have formal residency training outside of the country. And certainly, I mean, the implications, positive or negative, of such a reform, I think we'll need to see. We'll need to wait and see how things develop. But the point being that I think a lot of states are actually ready and willing to grant, more freedom, more privileges as far as practicing medicine in the U.S. is concerned. Which has been a very, like, traditionally, it has been restricted to physicians who are residency trained. And I think in such a situation, it makes even more sense for the administration, for the Congress, and state governments to be more forthcoming towards physicians who are already here, who have trained in the U.S., who have licensure to practice medicine, and who have been doing so for some of them for over a decade now. I think it only makes sense to allow them more freedom to practice, to allow them to the ease of changing jobs, or working at multiple places together, especially in the situation like COVID, where this was more of a necessity than a comfort. So,
But to understand some of the state legislation you mentioned, I guess that if I understand it correctly, they are removing some qualification criteria because of this shortage, that some qualification are removed so people are easily able to come and start practicing. But the issue I'm seeing is that, okay, this is good that people are able to come and serve and they are getting the health care. But the part which is, I think, is missing, that providing the relief to them, right? That they are able to practice, but do they get the freedom to travel in and out of the country? That is still missing in the state legislation, right?
right. No, I mean, completely agree, and that's going to be the next big problem with such laws being implemented. Uh, you know, I think it's widely understood that there is a shortage, and there is inevitably there's a need to rely on foreign medical graduates, with a lot of them already here. However, I think somewhere down this process, somewhere down the line, I think the point is being missed that for the people who are here, who have done, who have been working, who have been on the front lines during the COVID pandemic, and who want to live here, want to call this home, and want to serve their people, want to serve their communities, are somehow still regarded as aliens.
Right. Yeah.
Despite they're doing one of the toughest jobs across the globe.
Yeah, that's so true, and that's very sad. And I guess the last solution I would recommend is that I guess that the backlog for the healthcare workers. I guess that overall backlog in the high skill immigration category, it's, I guess, around 2 million or something. But I guess that the healthcare, if I think about it, that probably it's only 100,000 or something, if I have to guess, or according to the numbers I saw a few months back. So it's like if they have to introduce a legislation which is like just like special 100,000 green cards issued who are already like licensed healthcare workers in the United States with the approved immigration petition, 100,000 green card issued at the as per the priority dates, right? I think that that's at least clear the healthcare backlog, which is like very important when we have this shortage. And I, as I was saying in the beginning, right, that all the jobs are important, but like at my job, no one has died doing their job, right? Which is we have heard about people like risking like this healthcare workers, especially during the COVID. Many lost their lives while serving, and a lot of the jobs they are doing, like they see that that's why we call them like frontline workers, right? That they are at the front line, right? And then we, if they are doing this critical jobs, we don't need to like burden them with this unnecessary thing they have to keep in the back of the mind about like maintaining the status and all this visa restriction, right? So that's something very straightforward which the Congress can introduce right now, and I don't think so there will be a lot of opposition to this bill, right? So it just the motivation is missing. I hope we start having this conversation more, so there is a more pressure on the policymaker to prioritize this solution towards this issue. Anything else, doctor, you wanted to say about like solution or challenges or anything at all?
No, I totally second what the way you put it. I think, of course, with all due respect to everyone, and everyone has a role to play. All occupations, all professions have had a role to play. While physicians were on the front lines, there were scientists who were responsible for developing the path-breaking vaccines that ultimately have saved millions and billions of lives across the globe. There were people who were working in the in the background, dealing with the supply chain of these vaccines. There were people who were, doing some other things that have proven critical in the delivery of healthcare, for example. But certainly, myself being a healthcare worker, and I speak this on behalf of all healthcare workers, that I think most certainly, this is a deserved relief that we are all appealing for, and I think, like you said it earlier, it's a no-brainer. It makes absolute sense, and makes absolute sense to everyone who's listening, that they should be granted relief, that they should have the freedom to travel in and out of the U.S., and the freedom to change jobs or work at multiple locations if they have to, especially in a situation like COVID, when it's more of a necessity than convenience. I think most certainly they're deserving of this relief, and I think there's more that needs to be done at all levels. And if it means that we need to reach more people, reach more Americans, let them know of our problems, and reach the administration, reach the Congress with our requests, I think we should all be up for it. We should all be speaking for each other and speaking for ourselves. I think that's probably the only way, to make ourselves heard,
Right.
and to make Americans realize that, I think we have a role to play, and I think we are deserving of
Right.
this.
Absolutely. So yeah, if you are watching, like reach out to whoever you can, right? That you might be, you can reach out to your representative, you can reach out to your senators. If you are writing to president, you can send the letter to White House, or anyone you can think of, right? That these are the people who are who is in your circle of influence, right? And like start reaching out to them, writing to them that this issue needs to be resolved and they deserve the relief. So you can reach out to them if you have any ideas that this is how it can be solved, write to them, or if you want to reach out to us that how you can help. My Twitter link is there. I think I have already put Dr. Kulkarni's Twitter there, so you can reach out to with us a suggestion or ideas if you need ideas how you can help, or if you have ideas on how you can help us. Like, feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to connect you and like talk to other people as well, right? That if you in your family and that kind of any healthcare workers, that if they are going through this, and just like asking them would make them feel better. Anyways, doctor, thank you so much for taking the time to highlight this. A lot of the issues healthcare worker face, and I know that this conversations are not easy because you already go through this in your job, but then also come out and speak about it. It's not very easy, but I think that it's important to take the steps in the right direction. And I guess that it's not solved because this kind of conversations are not normal, but we want to make it normal. And thanks for taking that initiative to come out and educating us on a lot of the challenges and the like the journey which doctors has to take to get to that position. But even then, it's like they face the challenges which they shouldn't. So thank you for highlighting all these things to us, and hope it brings the solution we need in the healthcare industry.
No, thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity to be here today, and kind of give myself a voice on this platform. And I think it was a great conversation. It was very happy with our interaction today, and I hope this reaches more people. I hope this more and more people join this movement. I think that currently you are at the forefront of, and I hope people up there, people in the administration, people who have ways and means of changing things for us. I think they're listening, and they're listening intently, and also, of course, an appeal to I think all of my American friends and my co-workers, other physicians, be open in asking questions, and I'm sure you'll get to learn more. People in the same shoes as me, I think only by speaking up, only by letting people know what you're dealing with, I think we'll get this point across. And I am 100% sure that you will find ears that want to listen to you, and that want to take you seriously anywhere and everywhere you go. So yeah, no, I completely. It's my pleasure, to be here and to be a part of this discussion today. So thank you very much.
No, yeah, thanks again for joining, and thanks everyone who watched live. Please share it with your other friends, right? That there are more people who needs to be aware of on this issue. So please share it with anyone who you think might needs to hear that. So this reaches to more people. Thanks for joining it today, and I'll see you guys in the next episode with the new topic. Take care.